poor boy promised, "I will pay you when I am rich." 20 years later, he returned and kept his promise. The summer sun blazed mercilessly over the small, farming town of Millbrook. In 1995, 12-year-old Marcus Johnson walked along the dusty road, his worn-out sneakers kicking up small clouds of dirt with each step. His stomach growled painfully. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. His mother was sick, bedridden with pneumonia, and his father had left them years ago. Marcus had been doing odd jobs around town, but this week there was nothing. No lawns to mow, no groceries to carry, no errands to run. Just hunger and the gnawing fear of what would happen if his mother didn't get better. As he walked past the old Henderson farmhouse, the smell hit him like a wave, something delicious, warm, and homemade. His feet stopped moving before his mind could tell them to keep going. He stood at the edge of the property, staring at the porch where a girl about his age sat shelling peas. Her name was Sarah Henderson, though Marcus didn't know that yet. She wore bright red overalls and a yellow t-shirt, her long braided hair falling over one shoulder as she worked. She looked up and saw him standing there. This thin boy with hollow cheeks and desperate eyes. "You hungry?" she called out. Marcus wanted to say no, wanted to preserve what little dignity he had left, but his body betrayed him, and he found himself nodding. Sarah stood up, brushed off her hands, and disappeared into the house. Marcus remained frozen at the property line, unsure if he should stay or run. But then she emerged with a plate piled high with food: fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and a thick slice of cornbread. She walked right up to him and held out the plate. "Eat this." Marcus stared at the food, then at her. I don't have any money." "Did I ask for money?" Sarah smiled. "Just eat. You look like you need it." He took the plate with trembling hands and sat down right there on the grass. He tried to eat slowly to maintain some semblance of manners, but hunger won out. Within minutes, the plate was empty. Sarah sat down beside him. "What's your name?" Marcus Johnson." "I'm Sarah. Why haven't you been eating?" And there, sitting on the grass beside this stranger who had shown him kindness, Marcus told her everything. About his sick mother, about his absent father, about the jobs that had dried up and the fear that kept him awake at night. Sarah listened without interruption, her face serious. When he finished, she said, "My grandma always says that hard times don't last forever. You'll get through this." Marcus looked at her. This girl who had everything he didn't, who had no reason to care about him yet did anyway. He made a decision in that moment, a promise that felt bigger than himself. "I will pay you when I am rich," he said with absolute conviction. "I don't know when, but someday I'll come back here. And I'll repay you for this kindness." Sarah laughed, not unkindly. "You don't owe me anything. But okay, Marcus Johnson, I'll remember that." 10 years later, Marcus sat in his dorm room at State University, surrounded by textbooks and papers. He'd made it. Against all odds, he'd made it. After his mother recovered, she'd worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat. Marcus had thrown himself into school, earning scholarships that made college possible. He thought about Sarah Henderson often. He'd left Millbrook when he was 16. When his mother finally saved enough to move them to the city where better opportunities awaited, he'd never seen Sarah again, never had the chance to thank her properly. But he hadn't forgotten his promise. On his desk, he kept a small stone from the Henderson farm, a reminder of the day his life changed. Someday, he told himself, someday he'd go back. 20 years later, Dr. Marcus Johnson stood in front of the mirror in his hotel room, adjusting his tie. At 32, he was a successful neurologist, the founder of a nonprofit that provided free medical care to underserved communities, and a published author. The hungry 12-year-old boy seemed like a character from someone else's life. But he'd never forgotten, and now finally he was going back to Millbrook. The town hadn't changed much. The same dusty roads, the same small downtown with its handful of shops. But the Henderson farm, that had changed. As Marcus drove up the long driveway, he could see that the house needed repairs. The paint was peeling, the porch sagged slightly, and the fields that had once been lush and green looked neglected. He parked and walked up to the porch, his heart pounding. Before he could knock, the door opened. Sarah stood there, 20 years older but unmistakably the same person. Her face was tired, lined with worry, but her eyes still held that same warmth. "Can I help you?" she asked, not recognizing him. "Sarah Henderson." Marcus smiled. "You once gave a hungry boy a plate of food and told him hard times don't last forever." Her eyes widened. "Marcus? Marcus Johnson? I told you I'd come back when I was rich." He held out his hand, and she shook it, laughing in disbelief. "I can't believe it's you." Come in, come in." Inside, the house showed the same signs of struggle as the exterior. The furniture was old, the wallpaper faded. As they sat at the kitchen table, the same table, where that food had been prepared 20 years ago, Sarah told him her story. Her parents had passed away 5 years ago, leaving her the farm. She'd tried to keep it running, but farming was hard and she'd had no help. Medical bills from her father's cancer treatment had depleted their savings. She worked 2 jobs in town now, trying to keep up with the mortgage, but it was a losing battle. "The bank is foreclosing next month," she said quietly. "I've tried everything, but I can't save it." Marcus listened, his mind already working. This was why he'd come back, not just to repay a debt, but to pass on the kindness that had saved him. "How much do you owe?" he asked. Sarah hesitated, then named a figure that made her voice crack with despair. Marcus pulled out his checkbook and began writing. "I'm paying off your mortgage. All of it." "What? No, Marcus, I can't." "You told me I didn't owe you anything," Marcus interrupted gently. "But I've carried that debt for 20 years. Not because I had to, but because what you did for me that day changed my life. You saw a hungry kid and you didn't look away. You didn't judge. You just helped." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "It was just a plate of food." "It was everything," Marcus said firmly. "It was hope when I had none. It was kindness when the world had been cruel. It was a reminder that good people exist." He slid the check across the table. "This isn't charity, Sarah. This is keeping a promise." But Marcus wasn't done. Over the next few weeks, he arranged for contractors to repair the farmhouse. He connected Sarah with agricultural consultants who helped her develop a sustainable farming plan. He established a trust fund that would provide her with steady income while she rebuilt. More than that, he hired Sarah as the director of his nonprofit's rural outreach program. Her understanding of small-town struggles and her natural compassion made her perfect for the role. "You're giving me too much," Sarah protested when he explained everything he'd arranged. "I'm giving you what you gave me," Marcus replied. "A chance. That's all any of us really need, someone to believe in us when we can't believe in ourselves." The following spring, Marcus returned to Millbrook for the opening of the new rural health clinic he'd funded, the first of many planned across the region. Sarah stood beside him on the ribbon-cutting stage, no longer the tired woman he'd found struggling to survive, but a renewed person with purpose and hope. The clinic would provide free medical care to anyone who needed it, regardless of their ability to pay. It would ensure that no child in Millbrook would go without treatment because their mother couldn't afford it, that no one would suffer as Marcus's mother had suffered. As they cut the ribbon together, Marcus thought about the circle that had completed itself. A simple act of kindness, given without expectation of return, had grown into something that would help hundreds, maybe thousands of people. After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed and the sun began to set, Sarah and Marcus sat on the newly repaired porch of the Henderson farmhouse. "You know what I think?" Sarah said, looking out over the fields. "I think you paid me back that day you left Millbrook as a boy, determined to make something of yourself. Every patient you've helped, every life you've saved, that was the real payment." Marcus smiled. "Then this." He gestured at the house, the thriving fields, the clinic in the distance. "This is interest. 20 years of compound interest on a debt of kindness. Do you remember what I told you that day? Sarah asked. You said hard times don't last forever. And they didn't, she said, squeezing his hand. For either of us. As twilight descended over Millbrook, two people who had changed each other's lives sat in comfortable silence. Proof that the smallest acts of kindness could ripple across decades, transforming not just individual lives but entire communities. Marcus had kept his promise. But in doing so, he discovered that the real gift wasn't in the paying back, it was in the passing forward.